So I'm going to hit record, and I think it's doing so.
Can I ask you why you're interviewing me?
Yeah, because I'm practicing on friends and family.
Oh, okay.
So on the 12th of January,
Yeah.
I've got a thesis advisory panel, and then I'm putting my ethics in.
Yeah.
But the interviews that I've done so far, the practice ones have gone so well that I might end up using them. I'll just get retrospective ethics approval to let me write it up.
So you're okay.
Doctorate of medicine.
You're going to interview me. Okay. How could you interview me in a way that would be usable for your MA?
Well, I've written a thing. So it's the title of the dissertation is "How does the interplay between social and mainstream media impact upon global public health communication during a pandemic?"
Yeah.
And then the questions it's a semi-structured interview. So I've written out some questions. And then the point of this is just me practicing the questions and seeing how they go.
Yeah, but you said some of them went so well, you might just use those.
No, I use them all anyway. Like I've got to do probably like 30 or 50 of these interviews.
Yeah, but interviewing just someone like me, or I don't know, your mum, whoever you've been interviewing.
Yeah.
How would that be usable for your MA? Because we're not experts or anything.
No, but it's not. We're not interviewing experts. That's the whole point. We're interviewing like a range of experts and members of the public and all sorts of people.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So, yeah, Josie just said like me. Yes, thank you, honey. Yes.
Did Josie get interviewed as well?
Josie got numbers. She was ground zero.
She was patient zero.
Yeah. Okay. So 2020 has been a year like no other. The purpose of this semi-structured interview is to explore your views on the role various forms of media has had on how you personally have processed and reacted to evolving news of the pandemic. So, number one, or the first section, which is about recollections. What are your recollections of when you first heard about COVID-19?
It must have been it would have been January or February, I guess, probably January. It was just like, it would have, I think the papers were reporting on it quite big. I seem to remember it being on the front page of The Sun and stuff, but obviously no one took it seriously. We just thought it was going to be like swine flu or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then it wasn't until, when would it have been? I was still working at Cineworld when it started to become serious, and we realised that it was going to be a big deal that would actually affect how we lived socially. So that would have been, I stopped working there on the 18th of March. So in end of February, March time was when, then we realised it was going to be serious. But early on, it was, I knew about it and people were talking about it and stuff, but we kind of we're kind of joking about it. And if you kind of would touch something, be like, oh, don't get the coronavirus, that kind of thing. And I remember we were, this might not be useful to actually use, you might not be able to use these quotes, but when people would come into Cineworld and I'd get a beer, the only beer we had was Heineken and Corona, and we were making jokes about how no one wanted to ask for Corona.
And
we were still serving people beers and all that kind of stuff, which seems weird now, but we were making jokes about how no one want Corona, and then the people would say oh no, I don't want a Corona, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So at the time people just joking about it and no one thought it was serious.
Or the Wuhan flu, as Sacha Baron Cohen. Baron Cohen. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That song. But okay, so what source of media do you use to get your news?
Now, I basically
generally.
just I basically generally I don't use this to get news, but I do look on the Daily Mail website just because it's that gives me kind of whatever the shitty gossip is, because I like to keep up. I like to know what the shit gossip is, basically, because my main source of news I go onto Twitter and I follow people that I don't follow Piers Morgan and Donald Trump and stuff. I follow Guardian journalists and film journalists and stuff, but people who then retweet the kind of lefty stuff that I want to hear, basically. But that's how I get. So I use Twitter as a hub that then kind of people I follow will kind of tweet to a BBC article or tweet to a Guardian article, and I'll click on those, and that's how I kind of get a sense of. But while also then going on the Daily Mail, so I feel like I get a balance of. I get my lefty news from Twitter and the people I follow, and I go on Twitter to see what the right wingers are saying.
Okay.
And I feel like I get a balance, but mainly it's Twitter.
Go on.
No, I was going to say Twitter is kind of like a centralized hub of which the people that I've chosen to follow, will tweet. Like Amanda Iannucci and, you know, people like that will tweet out articles that they think are interesting, and then rather than me going and sifting through every single news website.
Okay.
I pick people to follow on Twitter who tweet articles so they're the only articles I read really when it comes to news. The ones that people who I've chosen to follow on Twitter tweet and say, people who I'm following, you should read this, and then I read them. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting because you said that it's almost you didn't mention the term filter bubble, but you're alluding to it in the sense that you know that you get a certain type of news from one place as a result of your choices. Yeah. But equally, you actively seek out the opposing view in another place.
I feel like most people are aware. I like to think that most people are aware that they're kind of in a kind of a bubble that they choose for themselves. But I do kind of, I'm one of those arseholes that likes to play devil's advocate. So I kind of try to kind of like deliberately give myself a bit of balance.
Okay.
Even though it's not really balanced, because I then kind of there's never ever been a time where I've read something in the Guardian and then looked up what Daily Mail is saying about it and then gone, actually, Daily Mail has a point. So I know that's not going to happen. So it's not really even balanced, really.
You say you'd like to hope to think that everybody knows that they're in these filter bubbles, but do you think they do?
I think that the people that I talk to and surround myself with and follow on Twitter are usually, and this is going to make me sound like a real kind of, this is that kind of thing that people who don't like lefties think makes them sound like arseholes. But I think that the people I follow and the people I'm friends with are self-aware enough to be aware that they kind of like only kind of are in a bit of a bubble. And the people who I don't like are the ones that aren't self-aware enough to know that. But I think everyone does it, yeah. Unless, obviously, but then I said, but I'm not like that because I deliberately look for the balance, and I guess some people do that as well. But I've noticed that not a lot of people do. Even a lot of the kind of intelligent lefty kind of people that I follow on Twitter, like, deliberately don't look on, you know, the Sun or the Daily Mail or like to listen to any other points of view, which I think is a bit dangerous and a bit silly.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting that you talk about this in terms of left and right. And to what degree do you think COVID has been politicized?
Well, I was just thinking, actually, when you just said that, I was thinking it's funny, but without you even politicizing it, I politicized it, didn't I? I made this whole topic get political, didn't I?
I've deliberately not kind of, my MD supervisor, like, I wrote a question, he goes...
I walked right into the trap, didn't I? I politicized it myself.
It's not a trap, but my some of my questions were like, it will come to one in a sec. I won't tell you what the question was before, but he told me to rewrite it. So to what degree do you think it has been politicized by
just COVID?
COVID, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely political because everything nowadays is political. Like, because of, I mean, I think it does go back to Twitter and online discourse, but because everyone's got to have an opinion 24/7, because there's Twitter, because there's Facebook, everyone's got to have an opinion 24/7. So everyone's got to have an opinion on everything. And so something that 10, 20 years ago, some kind of innocuous, trivial political news, but people would have just ignored, like, I don't know, MEP elections. After Brexit, suddenly that became a big thing that people were getting into fistfights on the street, queuing up to vote for the MEP. Like, who used to care about MEPs 20 years ago?
Yeah.
But to get back to the point, is that that's an example of how everything's become politicized now. And so I think that COVID has become politicized, but I don't think that's as a result of what the politicians have done. I think that's just as a result of how society is now. I think that politicians would rather COVID wasn't politicized at all, and people kind of weren't really paying attention to it. They were paying attention to other things. But journalists and people like Piers Morgan on Twitter and stuff, who, like, most people who are on Twitter follow people like Piers Morgan and Armando Iannucci and all these kind of like, what would be the word for them? Like cultural kind of tastemaker kind of people. they've made it political because they are wanting to, at every step of the way, have an opinion on what's happening. And so, especially now, because of what's been happening over lockdown, people have had nothing else to do. A lot of people, like, if you don't have kids, if you've got grown-up kids, and you're not busy looking after them, and a lot of people have been laid off, and so all they've got to do is sit around all the time, watching the rolling news, being online.
Yeah,
they've got nothing else to do but either look at and read and have opinions foisted upon them, or have those opinions themselves.
Yeah.
And because it's a 24/7 cycle of getting content from something and having an opinion on it, and that's about everything. It's not just about politics, but it can be music, or it can be films, or it can be TV, or it can be books, it can be anything. At some point, because it's 24/7, it's going to get to politics. You've talked about films enough, you've talked about TV enough. Okay, what else is going on? Oh, politicians are doing and saying stuff. So I think that it has just. I don't think it can be helped but become political. Everything becomes political. If COVID hadn't happened this year, something else would have become political.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. You've touched on everyone has got to have an opinion 24/7 on everything. The rolling news cycle, the being online, and then the social media fueling this. And that's definitely stuff that I agree with. But equally, how do you think that that's played into how the public health communication around COVID?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by public health communication, because my opinion of my understanding of the public health communication mainly has just come from what these Chris Whitty and whoever the other people are on these press conferences every night. Well, during the summer it was like every night there was a press conference, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And I can't remember how it started out, but now a lot of the updates has come from. It's been leaked to people like Robert Peston and stuff beforehand. It's been leaked to people. Basically, I mean, I know I'm going on about Twitter a lot, but that's kind of been the hub of all of this. A lot of Boris Johnson's and Chris Whitty and Matt Hancock and all their conferences and their statements. Like this, I mean, this isn't necessarily specifically about health, but Boris Johnson, when he was talking about the lockdowns, just recently, the new tier 4 lockdowns and stuff, he was going to do a press conference, but like an hour before, Rob Peston was saying on Twitter, oh, here's what he's going to say. And it's like, what kind of policy is that to tell Robert Peston on Twitter to allow him to tweet it out before you're going to tell the public? Because I will tell you what was strange about that is that my parents and my brothers and most of my friends aren't on Twitter. I'm on Twitter more than they are. And I have only just started being like in the last year and a half or something. But they didn't know about the rules of lockdown. I had to say, oh, well, and this is after Boris Johnson had done his speech. And I said, oh, well, Robert Peston has written them all out on Twitter. He did this an hour before Boris Johnson's speech. So there's no wonder there's confusion, because almost all of it is coming out, is being just put out straight on Twitter.
Yeah.
So most people don't follow Twitter. The majority of people aren't on Twitter. So I know it seems like a big thing, Daily Mail gets a lot of its articles fueled. They're able to look on Twitter and make news out of what's happening on Twitter, but the majority of people aren't on Twitter. So how are they supposed to know about these rules and these public health announcements and stuff that are just put out on Twitter? Like, that's no way for a government to give out such important information, but that's how they're doing it. I don't know why.
Well, okay, and I mean, it's not just Twitter, you're right. I mean, right at the beginning, Hancock leaked something, or an aide of Hancock gave a kind of out-of-hours press briefing to somebody at the Daily Telegraph.
Yeah.
And they put it up behind a paywall.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, this is what I mean, exactly, that kind of thing. So, yeah, you're right, it's not just Twitter, but it's an example of how they're, for whatever reason, well, the reason is because they want to be able to say, oh, no, we told the public that, but they didn't really. They told Twitter, they told the Daily Telegraph, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, so hold on, what was the question again? How do I think what? What was the question again?
No, it was just a bit of a free-flowing discussion just around the theme. So that was
quite
interesting.
So it was about how the public health policies are. It's Anyway, I said
okay. So what was the first country you heard was affected by COVID-19?
Well, China, obviously.
Yeah, and then how did
it go to and then did it go to Germany or something? I seem to remember. I do remember early on. It was like, oh, it's getting closer, but we were like, oh no, that's just gonna. Who cares? That's what happened with swine flu, wasn't it? That's what happened with SARS. Who cares? Yeah.
So you think there was an element of complacency in the run up to this?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know that you. I don't know how you found it, because obviously you were a doctor and you're probably reading all the journals and stuff. But yeah, I remember sitting in a break room at Cineworld and we were all just taking the piss and laughing about it. the copy of the Sun or whatever was on the table. And we were just kind of like, mocking it.
So surprisingly, I don't read all the journals because it's quite difficult for me to read them all.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I do follow, like you follow, people from a film or drama or arts perspective.
Yeah.
I follow people from a medical perspective on Twitter. So therefore I could see what was happening in other parts of the world.
This is the thing, and this is what's interesting. And this is what's interesting about, again, I don't want to go bang on too much about Twitter, but my year has been very much defined by Twitter, because on loose hours, that's what I've gone on Twitter, and that's how I've got my news, because that's where the news has been being put out. But it's interesting that is an important part of it, and a lot of people are in the same position as me. But as you said, you can it's a website where it is essentially a news website now, I would say, but it's one where everyone's getting a different thing, because if you just follow medical people and doctors and stuff, you're getting a completely different experience of it. And I know some people I follow on Twitter are saying like, oh, this website makes me depressed and blah blah blah, because they're obviously just following the wrong people, because I don't find that at all. Like, I don't find it depressing. I follow people I think are funny or interesting, whatever.
Yeah.
But everyone's getting a completely different experience out of it, even though it's this big, huge, in a very different way than you would do from Facebook, I would say. I think Facebook, even though you obviously you have your friends and stuff, but it's quite a homogenous user experience. But Twitter is a completely different beast. Like, one person will be on Twitter and they'll just kind of like find it kind of very, very entertaining and joyous, and someone else will be on it, and all they'll get is, that's where this word doom scrolling has come along, where you're just scrolling and all you're seeing is bad news, and you kind of become addicted to it, because you want to just see what all the bad news is, and you want to see how much of it there is.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone gets a completely different experience out of it.
So there's a great book called Digital Minimalism, which talks about the business models behind Facebook, Twitter, all of them.
Yeah.
And it is getting people hooked on scrolling as much as possible to keep
on scrolling.
Yeah. And I find that when I go to my phone, so if I've turned all notifications off for everything, but if I go to my phone for something and you go into an app with a specific purpose, whether it be Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, any of them, even YouTube, there'll be something there that catches your eye.
Yeah, of course.
And you do that instead of what the reason was that you went there.
Yeah. I was saying this to Anna earlier. We were talking about what were we talking about? Just for how, like, you can. Well, no, that's it. We were talking to my mum, and she was saying about how she goes to bed in the evening, and she thinks that it's like, she goes to bed at 11:30, and she thinks, right, I'm going to go to bed now, and I can get a good 8 hours sleep. But then she quickly looks on her iPad to just check something, like, go on Instagram or whatever, see what Dan and Hannah are up to in Sweden. And then she looks up and it's like an hour and a half later, and now it's like 1:30 in the morning. She's like, God, what a waste of time. And I said, yeah, when I wake up, if I'm up early in the mornings with Freya, like, because she's woken up at 6:30 or whatever, and I've stuck on the TV for her, I could be doing something, like, I could be doing a bit of work, I could be doing a bit of writing, I could read a book, I've got a bunch of films I still want to watch, but I haven't got round to. But I'll pick up my phone and I'll see when the Americans were awake last night, what were they saying on Twitter that I missed? And then I'll look up and it's an hour and a half later, and Freya's sitting there, she's still watching TV for an hour and a half, and I've been just looking at Twitter and like, what a complete waste of time. Why did I do that?
Is it though? Is it a complete waste of time in terms of given the work that you're doing?
I mean, it depends what you consider a waste of time, because I mean, I suppose some people would say that in the lockdown situation, whatever keeps you kind of like happy and kind of like, grounded or whatever.
Yeah.
If that's what you enjoy doing. But it's one of it. it is kind of, even though I'm aware of it, it is, if I say it like I'm about to say it, it sounds like an addiction, because if you say it's one of those experiences where you're enjoying it while you're doing it, but once you finish and you put the phone down, you have to go off and eat, and you just think like, what was I doing? What did I get out of that? What a complete waste of time. But then you do go back to it straight away, you'll do it again, and then, you know, you'll be enjoying it for an hour, and then after you finish, like, yeah, why did I do that? I could have been doing something else. I could have been doing something so much more productive.
I think we're going to see a bit of a fight back in terms of social media, because that's another topic which we'll talk about.
But I'll just say about that, I don't think we will, because you and me can talk about it and we're aware of it, and we can say, oh yeah, we should, you know, we shouldn't kind of, it's a bit of a waste of time, blah blah blah. But there's kids that have like grown up on it and they don't know anything else, and there's 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds who are
making more money than we'll ever make.
Yeah, but if they're not already making their livelihoods from it, that's their future plan. And I don't just mean something frivolous like, oh, they want to be vloggers or whatever. I mean in a very serious way, that's how they're going to make their jobs. And it's not just like, oh, being millionaire YouTubers. It's like there's thousands of ways to make money or to have a livelihood from social media, and that's what they're all planning. Even if it's not directly in or working for Twitter, it'll be like having to use LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook as a way of promoting themselves, and that's how the next generation of jobs is going to be. And you're going to have to be on Twitter, like if you want to be a journalist, if you want to be whatever you want to be, because we already found it. Like I think our generation found it. If you're not on Facebook, then employees think there's something a bit weird about that. And I think that now, if Twitter is the new Facebook, where people, if you're applying for a job, people look on Twitter not only to find out if you've said something problematic 5 years ago, but also if you're not on Twitter, they'll think, why is this person not on Twitter? That's a bit weird.
Yeah.
So I don't think there will. Well, my point being, I don't think there will be a fight back, because I don't think there'll be able to be a fight back.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
I think now we're kind of too far down the rabbit hole.
I think that's interesting.
And I think that the next generation aren't seeing it as a dark and scary rabbit hole. They're just thinking, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. But you and me, obviously, are like probably the last generation who are of the last generation that remember a time when there wasn't Twitter and stuff. And so we do think, oh, this is worrying. You know, it's what a horrible time to be a kid. But then, you know, that's probably what our parents. Well, that's definitely what our parents thought. I remember my parents used to do, when me and my brothers were always on MSN Messenger or the N64 or something. My parents thinking, oh God, what a dark and scary time. This is a this is a gateway into something worse. And obviously it wasn't for us, but they were worried it would be. And now we're sitting there worried, but for the next generation, Twitter, Facebook, you know, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, whatever, I don't know, whatever else is a dark and scary rabbit hole that they're going to fall down and get sucked into, and that's going to eat up their entire lives. But to them, it's just a normal thing.
You say that, but it has become a lot more immersive. It has become a lot more all-consuming. And, you know, I see people in A&E that came in feeling that they were butters. I didn't even know what butters was, but it was butt ugly.
Yeah.
Because their photo only got 200 likes on Instagram and their friends got 2,000.
Yeah.
And that, again, in digital minimalism, they talk about how the business models for these things to be so addictive are basically around hacking your brain and your pathways. So my question on COVID and this for you is, have you ever clicked on the go to the NHS for COVID-19 information? Have you seen that all over Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else?
I've probably seen it, but I haven't clicked on it.
Okay.
I've seen when I've been on, I don't really use Facebook that much, but when I've been on Twitter, you do get sponsored posts saying, like, you know, you'll be scrolling, and, you know, if you're on it enough, you kind of learn to kind of like just scroll until you see something that you need to see. So you kind of learn to become like to block out things you're kind of not interested in. And you do see like the little GIF that comes up of, you know, make space, cover your face, all that kind of shit. So there, and it probably on that does have a link to say like click here for more information, but I haven't, because what's the information going to be? Stay at home, all right? I know I'm supposed to do that.
Okay. When you heard that, I think we've talked about how it made you feel in terms of when you heard it was China, you were like pretty blasé about it, thinking it's miles away.
Yeah, but because we've lived through so many, you know, SARS, swine flu, mad cow. Do you know what I mean? It seems like every year there was, or every couple of years there was a new thing, and, you know, we've never taken it this seriously.
Yeah. Do you know why we're taking it so seriously now then?
I'm going to be honest, not really.
Okay, that's fine.
Everyone, I know there's been a lot of deaths, but I think, and I don't want to be one of those like, oh, it's not serious, it's just like the flu. But it kind of, I don't know anyone that's, I mean, I don't even really know anyone that's had it. I know my brother had, no, Sarah had it.
Yeah.
She went to hospital.
Yeah.
Ironically enough. But then Ben didn't get it. That's the thing. Sarah got it, Ben's wife.
Yeah.
Ben living with her didn't get it.
Yeah.
So that made me think, well, that's a bit like, obviously it's kind of just potluck, kind of.
I think
they were bloody living with each other.
Yeah.
And what else was I going to say? And other people I know, like, I mean, everyone's trying to make it, obviously, everyone's trying to make it sound serious. But like, I was just watching Graham Norton last night, and they were talking to Tom Hanks, because Tom Hanks was one of the guests, and he was like the first celebrity to get it, wasn't he? If you remember.
Yeah.
And they were saying, asking, I know Graham Norton was asking him what his experience of it was, and he was just like, oh, he was obviously trying to be a kind of an upstanding member of public and saying, you've got to be careful. But he kind of also couldn't get away from the fact that he was all right. He got it. He felt rough for a bit, and then he was all right. And it's like, yeah, that's most people's experiences of it. So, and that's what happened to Sarah as well. And I know most people get it. You feel a bit rough. I mean, people I follow on Twitter say like, oh, I've been diagnosed positive with COVID. I'm feeling rough. I haven't died. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah. And there's a lot of stuff
to an extent. I know it's serious, but to an extent, yeah. I don't know why this one is the one that is such a big deal.
Okay, so briefly, I'll tell you in terms of it's because it can spread like wildfire. The new variant even more so.
Yeah.
And also, we still don't really know if you were to get it, or I were to get it, or Josie were to get it. It's complete pot luck as to how we would react to it.
Yeah.
Most likely, we would be fine, the age group that we are, with no medical history.
Yeah.
But then the trouble is if it spreads like wildfire throughout the populace, which is what they wanted to do, you would overwhelm the NHS to the point that you crash any healthcare system around the world, because so many patients would be going into it.
But and I get that, and I also get that you can't trust the public if they had it, because what I was about to say just then is, okay, so if everyone just got it, and then you've got it, stay at home, isolate for 2 weeks, now you've had it. And I know we don't know whether you can get it again and stuff, but if everyone who got it, unless they were really, really, really ill, just stayed at home, and then the people that actually were seriously ill and needed medical attention then went to hospital, that wouldn't be much more different from the flu or something, would it? I guess the problem is that you can't trust that the public they're not going to go, oh, well, I'm one of the ones that needs to go to hospital for it. So they're just going to rush off and...
Yeah, and I think yes, I agree. But then equally, I think a lot of the people that have been going in to hospital and flooding hospitals, they've not been flooding it because they're the worried well and they've got COVID. They're actually going there because they need oxygen, they need support.
Yeah.
They're unwell. Yeah. So it's difficult in that regard. So how did you feel when it got to Italy then?
Oh, was that where it was? I said Germany, didn't I? Did it go to Italy first?
Yeah, no, I did go to Germany as well. But then when it went to Italy, or when it got closer, how did you feel about
that? It didn't really worry me.
Okay.
It didn't. At no point in this whole year have I kind of been sitting there worried, scared, or anything. But I mean, I think a lot of that is because I've got the kids to kind of take my mind off it. Like I always say, like, if I wasn't looking at the news and knowing it was happening, my life wouldn't really have changed that much, apart from the fact that I wasn't working at Cineworld anymore. But it's not like I've been one of those people that has the time to sit around and kind of do nothing, watch TV, look at my phone, and kind of keep on updates of the bad news, especially in the summer when Anna was working and stuff.
Yeah.
Because she was a key worker at a care home. There was a point in the summer when she was working loads and loads. I was kind of looking after the kids all day.
Yeah.
So from like 8 till 7, my day was booked with looking after the kids. My point being is that my day was full. I was busy. I didn't have, the time to kind of like worry about what else was going on. So
when did you worry about it?
Never. I haven't worried about it. The only negative way in which this year has really been affected for me is the fact that Anna wasn't able to go back home to Finland.
Yeah.
But that's like a kind of an individual worry. You know what I mean? That's not a health thing. That was just because that was just what was happening.
Okay, so in that,
yeah, basically, I would. Yeah, I can't really explain why, but I was never worried. I never really seriously thought that if I got it, I would be really. I mean, I knew I'd probably ill. We knew it made you ill, but I never thought that I would like die from it. I have to go on like a ventilator. I never thought my family was going to get it.
So would they, if they said to you, right, you need a vaccine to go and travel, would you take the vaccine?
I've been thinking about this recently because I don't really want to do that. Not that I'm an anti-vaxxer kind of like tinfoil hat person. But I kind of don't really want to do the vaccine until we properly know the effects. So I would hold off as long as possible, except for if they said, if we were planning on going away in Easter or in the summer and they said, you have to have the vaccine to get on the plane, or if they said, oh, you can't go to the cinema or you can't start work again until you had the vaccine, I'd just say, yeah, go on then, I'll have it. Okay. Because then everyone would be doing it. Like, you wouldn't be able to, if it's going to, but I mean, but then also, this is the way that people kind of drones and sheep walk compliantly into the government giving you some kind of drug that kind of makes you some compliant drone, do you know what I mean? But if they were like, you can't do anything socially unless you have this vaccine, then of course I'd be like, oh, okay, go on then, give it to me. Okay. But then that's when you had to, again, that's how kind of like, that's the kind of thing that George Orwell would warn against, isn't it? But I'd read that George Orwell book and go, yeah, God, that's terrible, isn't it? I'd never do that. But I would.
Okay.
So but then that's also because the people that I trust, the kind of the lefty intelligentsia, I'd have the Charlie Brookers and the Armando Iannucci's of the world telling me, go on, just take it.
And are they telling you that though? Are
they would do, of course they would. If the kind of, because the right wingers are the kind of a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and they've taken the stance of don't be a sheep, don't be a, kind of don't to think for yourself, don't just listen to the people that want to give you a vaccine, man. Then the people that are kind of want to establish themselves as being kind of not that, who are kind of like the Guardian journalists, the Armando Iannucci's, the Charlie Brookers, that kind of people, the people who I consider like smart, intelligent people, are, because they don't want to seem like a kind of right-wing, reactionary, conservative type person. They're saying no, take the vaccine, it's fine. They're already doing it. Like they're kind of like Ian McKellen, for example, has kind of had the vaccine. Said, no, everyone have when you get the chance, have the vaccine. So that's what the people that kind of I trust will be saying. They'll be saying, have the vaccine, it's good for you. And then I'd kind of walk straight into it. And if the vaccine ended up bad, I'd be like, oh God, yeah. Those people who usually are wrong about things are actually right that time.
Okay. So we've covered the next few, which was, did you change any behaviours on hearing the news? Which I think is not really, to be fair. Is that right?
Well, no, I did. I didn't go out as much. I followed. They said don't go out. They said kind of like keep in a bubble, which we were in our own little bubble anyway. We don't really go out that much anyway. But like I did what I over the summer. Yeah, I kind of did what they said to do.
Okay.
So I did change my routine.
Sorry, so you did. Okay, so how did your views vary as compared with your friends and family?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that the people I surround myself with are kind of pretty like-minded. We're all just like, if they say to do this, let's just do it and get on with it. I mean, I know that at first my dad wasn't taking it seriously. And I sometimes said to him, like, well, you're supposed to, you've got to take it seriously. That's the whole point. Like, he was kind of still just, when it first happened and there was the first lockdown, he was finding an excuse to walk into town every single day and kind of go to Iceland or whatever. And this was before it was like, make sure you wear a mask. Back in those days, it was like, I remember it was just like, wash your hands. Yeah. Everyone was making sure they were scrubbing their hands until they were red raw. No one was bothering to wear a mask. Yeah. I remember back in, and I don't even remember if it was like keep 2 meters distance. It was just wash your hands.
Yeah.
It was like, don't all be in together too much. Queue up outside shops. Go in one at a time to Tesco, but make sure you wash your hands.
Yeah.
And so back in the early days, we were queuing up outside Iceland, going into Iceland, queuing up outside Tesco, going to Tesco, and no one was wearing a mask.
But your dad found excuses every day to go?
Yeah. So he was finding, and it was just silly. And I was just like, you're supposed... I was like, I know you don't... And I'll tell you why. It's because it was people like Boris Johnson giving the advice, saying, oh, we have to do this. And like most people who kind of consider themselves kind of like against what Boris Johnson stands for. Are like, well, I don't really want to have to follow what Boris Johnson said. I wish it was someone else. Do you know what I mean? So like, so
but then equally, to be fair, this is the same man that said, "I'm going to go and shake every single hand of every single patient."
Exactly. But and
then ends up on ITU.
Yeah, but exactly. But also at the same time, he was saying, like, we got to, wash your hands. You got to keep inside. You got to stop going out. You got to kind of lock down, isolate. Don't go out. Only do a shopping if it's essential. Can't remember what I was saying.
Okay.
Yeah, so my point being, yes, my dad would find silly excuses to go out every day, more than he would normally. It's just because he'd been told that he wasn't supposed to. He was kind of almost deliberately doing it, and even though he considers himself kind of like a sensible, intelligent man, and I was like, you're supposed to do a big shop. That's what the rules are. You kind of got to. And in the summer, before the whole Bernard Castle thing happened, when everyone was saying like, oh, the government's advice is so kind of wishy-washy and kind of inconsistent. It's like, well, you kind of, to an extent, they're expecting us to use our own intelligence, and if they say don't go out, if they say lockdown, if they say only go out if it's necessary, that's kind of what you got to do. Just because one of the rules is you can go out for exercise, if you don't feel like exercising, it doesn't mean you have to go out and exercise. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not supposed to. Just if you have to. Anyway.
That's interesting. I mean, I took that exercise to be on my bike, and I was going out like 30, 40, 50 kilometers.
Well, exactly. So even you were kind of knowingly pushing the limits of it. You weren't supposed to, but yeah, you took up cycling more than you ever would have normally. About this summer, you wouldn't have done as much cycling as you did.
Mate, I got my karma when I had my little brain injury, so it's fine.
Well, yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is the thing. Even you, kind of again, serious, intelligent medical healthcare person, was kind of using it.
No, to be honest, it was solo cycling, and it was also a case.
No, I know, but also sticking to the letter of the law. What the best thing over this summer for everyone to have done was literally everyone just lock yourself in your house, don't do anything. The ultimate, the best thing that could have happened this summer was if the government somehow organised like a Meals on Wheels for everyone in the whole country, so no one had to go out and do their food shopping, and then everyone would just close the door, lock the door, don't go out, stay at home. Your food will be delivered to you, and for 2 months, no one has to go out. That's what kind of would have been the ideal situation.
So not in summer. The time to do that would have been in March.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but yeah, when it first happened,
completely zero.
The first lockdown, exactly. Yeah, that would have been that would have been the ideal situation, wouldn't it? I mean, I guess as far as the healthcare and the government were concerned, but obviously they knew if they said that, I mean, they knew it was. I mean, getting food to everyone then would have obviously been illogistical, so they couldn't say that. So they had to kind of say, right, you can go out to do shopping, and then people would have gone, oh, but it'll be so unhealthy, oh, I've got some kind of underlying lung problem, I have to go out and get a breath of fresh air. So I say, okay, fine, if you want to go out and get some fresh air, you're allowed to, but just don't if you don't have to. And then we go, okay, and then everyone was going out to the park, and you were going cycling, and everyone was, you know what I mean? That's not what you were supposed to do.
No.
Yeah, anyway, that's got a bit off track.
No, that's fine. That's good. It's useful. So, Origins, what is your awareness on theories as to how COVID-19 came into existence?
Someone ate a bat, didn't they? No, some kind of Wuhan meat market. Someone ate a bat. Is that what happened? Okay. I don't really know.
My next question kind of feeds into that
wet
one.
Market,
and it might help.
Wet market.
It might help in terms of your give light on the answer. What would you deem as a trusted source as to get information on this specifically in terms of Origins?
I'm going to be totally honest. I think I would really only use it as an example that I would then cite when I was talking to someone else if it came from The Guardian.
Okay.
Because what was I looking at the other day? I was trying to look at something. It was probably something for the asthma series we're doing, where I was trying to look at something medical. And I typed it in, wanted to get it from a medical website. And there was NHS. No, there wasn't just an NHS.com. This is it. There was lots of different official looking medical sites. And I was like, that's too many. I don't want to look at that. I trust that The Guardian, because they've got their journalistic integrity, which I do believe in from them, that they would if they put something up, but they managed to source the actual official source.
Okay.
So yeah, but really, I mean, I know that's probably naive of me, but I'll just trust that one source. And I know some people really, really hate the Guardian, but that's who I'll trust it from.
No, that's interesting. That's fine. So, does detailed knowledge of the science behind COVID-19 help, hinder, or have no effect on your day-to-day response?
You mean,
like the science?
If I knew about it, or do?
Yeah, well, I mean, have you been? You know, put it this way, right? They've said follow the science loads of times. That's been one of the slogans. Have you actually picked up a scientific journal or looked at it to understand more?
I haven't gone out of my way to look up any factual stuff about it.
Okay.
I've kind of got it second, third hand from listening to the news, looking on Twitter, reading The Guardian or whatever.
So quite piecemeal, fragmented approach.
Yeah. But I also don't feel like, being who I am, I need to know about it. Like, if they tell me if I find out what the rules are, I'll follow them. Like, that's kind of, and okay. I'll wait around. There's nothing I personally can do about it. So it's like, tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'm just going to wait until it all blows over.
Okay. Like,
he seems short of a dead.
Short of a dead. I was just going to say.
Go to Winchester, wait till it all blows over. Yeah, but that's why that film was so good, because it is kind of prescient, but that's kind of an example of that's pretty much what everyone's thinking, and that's like a very kind of simplified metaphor for how everyone would treat a crisis like this, and that's what everyone has done.
But do you not think if they used that kind of metaphor and that kind of language at the beginning, it would have had a better impact rather than mixed, garbled messaging?
I think the problem is, and this is probably getting back to we'll get back to the actual point of your MA. I think that in terms of of publicity and kind of, not propaganda, but I can't think of the other word for it, but public messaging, if they had kind of made it more like fun when they did the lockdown, my sense, and it's like working for Cineworld, and I was kind of getting a sense of, especially like the younger people, like the 20-year-olds that are working there, and then speaking to my brothers and my friends and stuff, everyone was kind of a little bit excited. They're like, oh, we're going to have a lockdown, we're going to lock the doors, we're going to watch a bit of TV, some of us have to work, and we're going to be able to work from home. This is actually quite exciting, even though we were told like it's a serious pandemic, they take it seriously. Everyone was a little bit excited, and they kind of wanted to chip in and do it. Everyone was looking forward to like see what would happen if they spent. It was almost like a little task, wasn't it? We'll be able to spend the month at home. It was like a bit of a game.
Yeah.
So I think they had for like a month or so, month and a half, they had the government, even though people were kind of anti-Tory or whatever, they had everyone kind of a bit on side, and they could have really used that, but they didn't. And I think if they'd made it a bit more fun, like if the government had done like a proper like World War II, like this is a unified like thing, and we're going to kind of communicate with the BBC, we're going to get them involved, and we're going to kind of make a nightly kind of like, I don't know, like a little sketch show or a game show, or like a kind of like a Michael McIntyre hosts Lockdown Live or whatever, and done that kind of every night.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, Britain's Got Talent. Britain's Got Talent, like every night.
I don't know. I don't know what they could have done, but I was thinking about this not long ago. Yeah, if they'd done some kind of like nightly kind of 2-hour show, 7 till 9 or whatever, that everyone could look forward to. You're locked in. But my point is just kind of like use everything, bring it together. Like, I mean, they can do it for bloody children in need. Like, kind of like use, or like Live Aid. Do you know what I mean? Like, use every different element of kind of like British cultural society to kind of like bring the whole kind of country together and have kind of like one fixed message. Like, then they could have had everyone involved, but because they didn't, they kind of made it so serious and kind of boring in a way. Like, my point is if they just made it a bit more fun, they could have kept the kind of the public on side, and I think they would have kind of had them kind of like following the messaging for like a month, longer. 2 months, and they could, if they'd done what I'd said and kind of had like a kind of like some kind of BBC show where like Michael McIntyre, or I don't know, someone else kind of, and they could have got the messaging out in a fun way and a simple way that people would have understood.
No, that's really
interesting. They didn't, but I also think I know why they didn't. It's because they didn't know what was going to happen, and they thought but obviously people did die, but they obviously thought if this gets really serious and people were really dying, and it's a real kind of like people like dead bodies on the streets, then we can't seem to be making light of this.
Yeah.
So the government's official stance has to be serious, and we have to be the serious face of it. But I think that, in retrospect, that was the wrong approach. If they should have made it a bit more kind of like fun for everyone, really, because everyone was locked down, and it was kind of going to be a shit situation. So, yeah. but also everyone was a little kind of a bit. It was a bit of kind of like excited, nervous anticipation about it, especially when it was like the lockdown is happening now. So from now on, we're going to have this lockdown where you're not supposed to leave. You know, certain shops are closed. Everyone has to work from home. Everyone was a little bit excited about it. So I think they could have kind of used that to their advantage, but they didn't.
No, that's a really good point, and nobody's come up with that. So thank you. That's interesting. No, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean it. I genuinely mean it. I think the next question is, has your understanding increased or decreased over the past 9 to 12 months?
I think it's pretty much stayed the same.
Stayed the same, okay. And then this has widely been described in the media as a once-in-a-century event. In your view, could an outbreak such as this happen again in our lifetime?
I think it's going to happen more.
Yeah, you think it is? Yeah. Why is that?
I just think it is. My feeling is that people aren't going to take the lessons from this.
Right.
And I was talking about something similar with Anna yesterday. She said that she was, I can't remember exactly what it was. And I said, well, it's going to be the same with this. Like, she was saying about how, no one's clapping for the NHS anymore. That's been forgotten about. That was like a really big thing. Everyone was doing it every Monday, whatever it was, for like a month or two during the summer. And then it just stopped. And everyone's kind of forgotten that it happened. And I was like, well, that's kind of like a microcosm of what's going to happen with this. Once they say everyone can go back to work now, the shops can open again now, it's not like everyone's still going to be walking around with the masks on or still going to be keeping their distance. It's just going to be back to normal.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to pay attention. People aren't going to learn any lessons, I don't think.
No, I think you're right, because they didn't in 1918. Firstly, the second wave was more deadly than the first.
Yeah.
And then after that, they had the Roaring Twenties, because everybody was like forgot about it completely.
Exactly, and it's been a ticking. This whole thing has been a bit of a ticking clock, hasn't it? Like people knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, it could have happened. And I don't know why it didn't happen with SARS or whatever. But I think anyway, it's going to happen again.
Okay, so I'm in the last section, and we'll make a bit of progress just because I know that this has gone on a bit longer, but it's been really helpful. So thanks.
No, that's fine. I've been talking longer than I thought I was going to.
Subsequent pandemic behaviours. 3-word slogans have been a big part of the UK government communications. Are there any that particularly resonate with you, and why?
I guess, I'm not going to remember them exactly. No, none of them really. I guess they did, because I then remember what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to wear a mask, keep your space, and stay at home. But I can't remember if any. But they kept on changing, didn't they? That was the problem.
Okay,
yeah. So eventually, but I think my real when I really started to understand what you're supposed to do was just from people taking the piss out of those slogans. The slogans were so bad and the messaging was so bad and so muddled that it was more the people taking the piss out of it. People on Twitter saying, "Why don't we just say this?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's better. He's explained it. I'll do that." So it was the memes and the piss taking that came from those slogans.
Yes.
That kind of got the message across to me better than what actually the government did. Which goes back to my point that what's got people through the pandemic has been the fun side of it. People saying, people recommending things to watch on TV and people kind of making jokes on Twitter. And, I don't know if I don't know how much you're on Twitter and how you see these but there's lots of people who've kind of gone viral over and actually, well, there's this woman, what's her name? Sarah or something or other. She's an American comedian who does like, lip syncs of things Donald Trump says. And now she's got her own Netflix special. That's purely because of videos she started making during lockdown.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
But that goes to my point of, kind of people have wanted an escape and a fun escape, and comedians have made now their careers because of making people laugh during lockdown. And so that's an example of how people wanted something fun. And I think the government should have harnessed that, but they didn't.
Yeah, okay, that's really good. And I think we'll definitely use that in terms of hopefully for the next pandemic. Who knows, maybe you and I could be involved in putting that national effort. What does the term shielding and asymptomatic transmission mean to you?
Well, shielding is just where you kind of lock yourself away, isn't it? And
Yeah.
kind of like put up a shield around yourself to stay at home.
Yeah.
Asymptomatic transmission would be where you get it and you don't have the symptoms,
Yeah.
or when you don't have the symptoms but you have it and you give it to someone else.
Yes, exactly that one. Yeah, fine. That's good. So are you more likely to listen to a friend, expert, or celebrity when it comes to adopting behavioural modifications related to keeping you and your loved ones safe?
I think I'm more likely to listen to a trusted celebrity. It depends what you mean by celebrity, because if you say
be an expert.
No, not sorry, but because if you say celebrity, it makes it sound like I'm listening to the cast of Made in Chelsea telling me what to do, which obviously I'm not. But if it was someone like someone learned who I would trust had done the research, like Armando Iannucci or Charlie Brooker, I know they're the two I keep going back to. They're the best examples, I think, of this. And if they were saying, "Do this," this is what the intelligent people are doing, I'd be like, "Yeah, all right, I'll do that." Okay. So basically, again, it would be the scattered expert advice filtered through someone who's done the research and is able to put it out to me in a simple way.
Nice, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So scattered expert advice filtered through somebody.
Yeah, but not filtered through bloody. I don't know, not filtered through Nigel Farage or Piers Morgan. Filtered through the people that I think are trustworthy.
Okay, but then I guess to your point, there'll be for every one of you that likes Charlie Brooker and Armando Iannucci,
exactly.
There'll be someone
like
who's
Piers
following
Morgan,
bloody, someone like Farage,
or someone who's following. What's his bloody name? Who's that? Oh, what's his name? I've forgotten him now. He keeps getting in trouble for filming Muslims and getting. He keeps getting in trouble for trying to expose Muslim paedophile gangs, and he films them. And then what's his name? And he changed his name. His name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon.
Yeah.
But he calls himself. What does he call himself? Oh, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
I know who
he calls himself Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
Okay, so there'll be people. Yeah, I trust. Yeah, Armando Iannucci and Charlie Brooker. There'll be other people that trust Tommy Robinson and Farage. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so when stories about people breaking the rules emerged, do you think that helped, hindered, or had no effect on the public health response?
I think it definitely hurt.
Okay.
But I think that because people, especially then when there was those photos of people on the beach, and it was Daily Mail making a really big deal out of that. That just got their, and they knew it was going to. That got their reader base really riled up, and they were like, "Well, if they can do it, I'm going to do it as well."
Yeah.
But that was the tabloids trying to rile people up.
Okay. But that's their business model. Sell papers.
Well, exactly.
They want to do that. So,
but whereas the real, I mean, obviously, yeah, I mean, you kind of had to understand that the messaging is mixed. If you're told you can go out and get some exercise, why couldn't that be going to the beach? And so everyone did it. It was just, again, the blame on that should have been the government. But the Daily Mail, the business plan is obviously blame the plebs. Do you know what I mean? Get the plebs angry at the plebs. Set them on each other like dogs.
Get them on each other. That's just what I was going to say. Get them fighting each other.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what it is, isn't it? Instead of what they should have been doing, which is what The Guardian were doing, which is why I trust them. They were like, really, we should be blaming the government here because the messaging is so mixed. Let's not.
How many people read The Guardian and how many people read the Daily Mail?
Well, exactly.
I don't know.
Well, the Daily Mail is I think it's the most read website in the world.
Okay.
And The Guardian probably isn't. The Guardian, every time I go to it, is begging me for money. Saying, we're giving you this for free. Please just donate anything you can. And I'm like,
you don't even give them money.
I gave £2 to Wikipedia the other day.
Yeah, I did that.
They're still asking me for more money.
but you don't give money to The Guardian?
Oh.
Okay, wow.
Maybe I should.
The amount of money that you give to the Daily Mail through your time in advertising.
Well, but why can't the Guardian do that?
I don't know. We're getting off top point. We've got one last.
No, okay, sorry, go on.
Are there any phrases or words that spring to mind about 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic as a whole?
Oh, that's put me on the spot. There probably is, but I can't think of any.
Well, it's just from you. Like, we can think about it when we come to it, because then the last round is a picture quiz. So who's that and what's his job?
He's one of the medical experts. Don't know who he is. I don't know his name, but he's one of the medical experts, isn't he?
Yeah, Jonathan Van Tam, Deputy Chief Medical Officer. Who's that? It's a terrible... There we go.
No. Again, one of the medical experts. Don't know her name.
Jenny Harries, Deputy Chief Medical Officer.
Okay.
Sorry.
Again, terrible picture.
I
can't. Oh yes, okay, yeah, no, that's a better angle. No, I've never seen her in my life.
Debbie Sridhar. She's on Twitter, actually. I think you should follow her.
No, I don't want to follow her. I don't want to get the medical stuff on Twitter. That's where I go to get away from it. No, don't know who that is.
Okay, Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros.
No, but they haven't been making them do it on this side. Do it on, yeah. Oh, her face rings a bell. No, again, is it a medical person?
Maria Van Kerkhove, the World Health Organization. You won't know this one, but I'm going to do it in the interest of being fair.
No, I don't know who that is.
June Rain. So she's the chair of the. She basically is in charge of the organisation that said that the vaccine's safe. Go for it.
Okay.
Even though they're giving people the vaccine, not how it's been studied. But anyway.
But these people, like.
This is the last one.
That's Dominic Cummings.
Okay, good. So, then the last one is, can you remember, this is deliberately pixelated, but it's the yellow and black messaging from the beginning of the pandemic. Can you remember what was in each of the three components?
See, now there's been so many since then, but it's kind of, now the one that's in my mind is cover your face, keep space. That one is, it's going to annoy me now, because when you show it, I'm going to go, because I remember people were taking the piss out of it.
The one that people were taking the piss out of was the green one, which is that one.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be able to remember what they said now.
Not in terms. So it's that one.
But, so wash hands.
No.
I remember one of them, it was keep aware, and everyone was like, that's just stupid. Keep aware of what? That was at the bottom.
So, okay, it was the red and yellow one was in March lockdown, and it was stay something, and then two other things. So stay
at home.
Yeah.
Keep aware, save lives.
Save lives was at the end, yeah.
And in the middle, it was stay at home, wash your hands.
No, protect the NHS.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I've forgotten that one.
Then this one is stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
Yeah, stay alert. Stupid.
Stay alert
for what? It's not like you're going to be able to see the virus sneaking up on you in a dark alley. So what were we supposed to stay alert for? This was the kind of thing people getting annoyed about.
Josie's laughing at that one. She thinks it's quite funny. So what I'm going to do, Jerry, is thank you very much. I'm just going to stop recording it. That's really helpful. I'm going to transcribe it.
Yeah.
And it was so good, I'll probably seek retrospective ethics and ask if I can use it for the MD.
Okay.
So thank you very much. That's really good. And
I know. I went off on some tangents there, but probably aren't.
No, it's really good. It's really good. So I'm just going to stop recording, and then hold on a second. So if I stop that.